Hi, everyone. Really insightful presentations. Thank you so much. Sharon, Michael, and Jack, you talked about how important retrofits are to existing buildings instead of just having to build new. And Jack, you talked about needing to take responsibility and, update your homes to make them more energy efficient, net zero if possible. But Jessica, you talked about how that can be really difficult because people are really stretched financially, right? It can be really difficult for people to afford to do that. So some of these more radical, I guess, environmental proposals like a Green New Deal, like the NDP and Green Climate Change plans are now talking about national energy retrofit programs funded by the government that wouldn't just be tax breaks, but like actually paying to get all these buildings retrofitted. Do you think that's something we should be looking at doing? Because as Sharon, as you mentioned, retrofits are and like changing buildings are the low-hanging fruit and kind of the cheapest thing that we could do.
Yeah, so I think it's incredibly important. Like I said, the existing building stock that we have now is, it's not going anywhere, and so we need to make change in that sector right now to kind of prevent, or to kind of get us to the point that we need to be with our targets. So yeah, I definitely think it's incredibly important to focus on existing buildings and not just on new construction.
I'm going to tie it to my last comment. So actually, just in the last 2 years, there was actually a federal bill put forward by a conservative member, actually, for a tax credit similar to the American tax credit for historic and existing buildings, which unfortunately died, I think, after a committee and didn't get put into the budget process. But we advocated for that from our position, and yes, we'd be very supportive of leadership on the federal and provincial levels on retrofitting existing buildings.
It's interesting because Michael made a comment in his presentation that existing windows don't give you a return on investment and other things do. And yet replacing windows is one of the top renovation projects we do. And why is that? Well, it's basically because people are not planning, they're not thinking, they're just doing what everybody else is doing. And that's what we need to do, because Michael's comment is perfectly true. We've done an analysis on it, and when you look at replacing windows, if they're perfectly good shape, you're probably looking at an endless time before you get your money back. There's a lot of work being done, like people replacing siding. Well, if you're replacing your siding and if you add insulation to the outside and first of all, you got to add that air barrier, then your insulation, then your weather barrier, and then your siding. Well, it makes sense, but to put the insulation on and not needing to do siding doesn't make sense. So in a retrofit situation, what's really, really important is proper planning, to be able to look at it and look at it in sequence and be able to say, well, I don't need my windows replaced, but I do need maintenance on my siding, or I do need to replace the siding, but then plan something into it. So if you bring the plan together, and if you're into an old house, look at a 10-year plan, not just a 1 or a 2. Look at a 10-year plan. Here's what needs to be done, then you can factor it in, and it'll work.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of what you just said too, it's a mindset change. It's not doing what we've always done. It's looking at things differently and just coming up with different solutions. And yeah, so it's just not sticking with the status quo.